Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lucie Kučerová. I am the substantive guarantor for research and development, and in the following presentation, I will introduce the call Excellent Research. Specific objective: improving international quality of research and its results. The call falls within the specific objective 1 of priority axis 1 of OPRDE. The aim of the call is to promote problem-oriented research of an interdisciplinary character that helps effective utilization of research centers and initiates the achievement of internationally competitive research quality in terms of its originality and practical impact. On the basis of a defined research project, support will be provided to the related research team and the provision for material and technical needs. Call specifics state aid. Depending on the nature of expected activities during project implementation and also during sustainability period, applicants may choose the support options with respect to any state aid. Option A: the resources provided do not constitute state aid. The project is implemented outside the regime of public aid. That means the progress of the project and its financing is standard. Option B: aid will be provided in accordance with Article 25 of Commission Regulation number 651/2014. That means as part of the implementation or especially sustainability of the project, paragraph 19 of the Framework for State Aid of Research, Development and Innovation, 2014 C 198/01, and activities meeting the provisions of paragraph 20 of the framework will not be complied with. That means especially 20% limit of economic activities will be exceeded. Option B specifics in praxis of the call mean: only depreciation is eligible. Temporal eligibility of expenditure. Expenditure is eligible from the date on which application is submitted in the system. Compared to project conducted outside the state aid regime, option A, where the expenditure is eligible from the date of publication of the call in the system. The maximum amount of eligible expenditure must not exceed the equivalent of 40 million euro. The call only involves direct reporting, that means excludes indirect expenses. The applicants indicate in the project budget all eligible costs associated with the project. This means including cost of administrative staff or overhead. Supported activities. The following activities will be supported as part of the call. Activity A: support for research whose quality and originality reaches international excellence, thus increasing the research output of research centers. Activity B: completion, construction, renovation or upgrading of infrastructure in relation to Activity A. Activity C: building a new research center in the city of Prague in connection with Activity A. Supported activities. Activity D: development of research teams, support for or increase in the number of research teams, including their expansion to include domestic and foreign scientific and technical staff. Activity E: development of internationalization, establishing or strengthening scientific cooperation with at least one leading organization for research and dissemination of knowledge abroad. Activity F: project management. The applicant is required to select one of the following groups of activities: letters A, B, C, D, E, and F, or letters A, B, D, E, and F. Following the activities supported under the call, it's also necessary to apply the condition that the activities must be carried out in relation to at least one research center, or due to the focus of the research project, it's possible to implement the project in partnership with several research centers. Activity A. Support for excellent research. The research project must demonstrate timelines, quality, and potential for achieving success in the international environment. Excellence. The application for support must describe at least one research program, its activities, and objectives. The research must be logically coherent and be consistent with the existing activities of the research center of the applicant. Support will be provided to oriented research with the potential to support the creation of applied results in the longer time frame. That means results and outputs of research can be also used in the application sector if subsequently finalized. Support will be also provided to research having interdisciplinary character. Activity A. Support for excellent research. The research plan will be further elaborated in detail in the form of a research program. A detailed description of the research program will be presented in the feasibility study. The project may consist of multiple research programs. All programs should nonetheless be logically linked to the research activity and the focus of the applicant or partners. The research programs will be elaborated in detail within the feasibility study, Chapter 5, where each research program is described in a separate subchapter according to the following formula. Research Program 1 will be described in subchapter 5.1, Research Program 2 in subchapter 5.2, etc. Activity B. Completion, renovation, or upgrade of infrastructure. That means material, technical, and information support of research activities in relation to Activity A. Completion, that means expansion of the existing capacity of an research and development center tied to a purchase or use of new technologies within the existing buildings if possible. Closer explanation of the terms completion, renovation, and upgrade is also part of the specific part of the rules for applicants and beneficiaries. Activity B. Completion, modernization, or upgrade of infrastructure. The term upgrade means improvement of existing facilities or equipment or technology used, where the applicant, for example, buys an add-on model for an existing device or purchases a newer version of software, thereby improving, enhancing, accelerating existing equipment, making it more efficient or extending its functionality. Activity B. Completion, modernization, or upgrade of infrastructure. If the building where the project is implemented is not owned by the applicant, it is possible to buy only such infrastructure, devices or facilities, which will be capable of being unmounted and moved to the other premises. Activity C. Building a new research center in the city of Prague. Construction of a new research center or renovation of buildings which will newly serve as a research center in relation to Activity A, that means changing the original purpose of the building or premises. This activity can only be implemented within the territory of the city of Prague. Activity C. Building a new research center in the city of Prague. Within the newly built research center, it's possible to allocate maximum 10% of its area for a visitor center. However, any visitor center facilities or activities related to popularization are not eligible expenditure under this call. Activity D, development of research teams. This activity means increasing the number of research teams, including their long-term extension. The research team is, in the context of this call, perceived as a synonym for an expert team. The size and professional composition of the team must correspond to the needs of research defined in Activity A. Other restrictions on the size and composition are not defined. All relevant information shall be provided by the applicant in the application or its annexes. Information about long-term extension and/or development of the research team should be part of the Chapter 5.1.5 of the feasibility study. Activity D, development of research teams. The development of the team may be designed as follows: experienced or novice workers, Czech or foreign workers, research and technical workers. The applicant shall provide the justification of the adequacy of the setting of the team or its structure in the application or its annexes, especially feasibility study. The design and composition of the expert team, also in terms of its future development, is determined by the applicant in relation to the needs of the research project. The adequacy and suitability of this setting is then subject to objective evaluation. The call does not define any restrictions on FTEs. This means that the expert team may involve workers with 0.1 or 0.2 FTE. The applicant should always indicate how the worker will be involved in the project or research activities and what outputs or benefits he is expected to bring. Suitability or sufficiency of this involvement, that means the amount of FTE given the role in the team, will then again be subject to objective evaluation. Activity D, development of research teams. Key or excellent workers, members. In the expert team, it's possible to identify key or excellent workers. The applicant shall indicate in the feasibility study the justification and the integration of these workers into the structure of the expert team, presenting the CVs of these employees. The documents to assess the cruciality of the workers involves the presentation of the results of the key or excellent workers for the past 5 years under feasibility study, Chapter 5.1.5 Research Team, subchapters Results of key and excellent members of the expert team achieved in the last 5 years. These data will be confirmed by the CVs of these employees. CV of key or excellent workers must be presented with the application for support. Activity D, development of research teams. Leading researchers. Leading researcher is a researcher who leads and is responsible for a research program. In the application for support, the applicant must state the leading researcher of the expert team, namely, or at least as the qualification requirements for the position. The CV of the leading researcher, including his or her expertise and qualifications, must be presented with the application for support. Activity E, development of internationalization. The activity is focused on the creation or development of international scientific cooperation. As part of the activity, it's necessary to establish or strengthen the cooperation with at least one leading organization for research and dissemination of knowledge abroad. The cooperation must be linked to Activity A. As part of the project, it's possible to establish or strengthen more cooperations. The call requires the presentation of at least one. If presented, the requirement is met. Any further cooperation is entirely the responsibility of the applicant. Activity E. Development of internationalization. The form of cooperation is not determined in the call. The form and specific settings is determined by the applicant in relation to its capacity and needs. It can be, for example, mobility or cooperation in research activities. The cooperation will be described in the application for support or its annexes. The document can be, for example, the Memorandum of Understanding, Letter of Intent, etc. The last activity of this call is Activity F, Project Management. It's a mandatory activity. It must comply with the rules for applicants and beneficiaries general. Excluded activities of this call are building a new research center outside the city of Prague and support for the sustainability of project from the previous programming period. However, support of sustainability is considered to exclude the development of projects supported under the previous programming period. Applicants should clearly indicate in the feasibility study, chapter 3.4, the original condition of center's research activities and the plan for their expansion by the project. Consideration should then primarily be given to whether research activities to be further developed were funded under previous program OPRDI and OPEC. In this case, the applicants should clearly indicate the progress and the development of these programs. That means the applicant must distinguish and state the facts based on which it will be possible to determine that it's not common sustainability, but development, by, for example, purchasing additional equipment or extension of the original research programs, etc. Target groups of the call Excellent Research are workers of research organizations and doctoral students of universities. The main goal of call Excellent Research is to support research and its infrastructural support, so there could be no special or particular support for target groups in the application for support. Involvement of these defined target groups to the project is determined by the applicant in relation to the project conception, but it's not necessary. Indicators of the call Excellent Research. Indicator number of new researchers in supported entities. ID of this indicator is CO24 or 20400. Unit of measure is FTE. A new research worker is a worker, his or her FTE, whose involvement led to an increase in research capacity in the institution or organization of the applicant. In the project under the Excellent Research call, we do not expect a high target value of this indicator. OPRDE is not primarily focused on the creation of new jobs. According to national indicators definitions made by Ministry of Regional Development, the value of the indicator is measured as the number of all newly created jobs for researchers converted to FTE. A job is a direct result of the implementation of the project. It must be filled. Vacant jobs are not counted, and increase the total number of research jobs in the organization. Research support employees not directly involved in R&D activities are excluded. The indicator focuses on employees. Support may be provided to a new or existing institution. In the case of R&D projects, the duration of employment may be shorter, linked to project support. Positions created in different projects are added up if all the listed projects receive support. This is not considered multiple inclusion. To include the worker, there is no FTE limit. That means there is no requirement to count towards the indicator only persons with a particular FTE. Any person may be included, including those with, for example, 0.1 FTE. There is not even a time aspect. It's possible to count towards the indicator any employee whose involvement will increase the research capacity of the applicant. For example, if the project implementation will increase the FTE of an existing worker from 0.5 FTE to 1 FTE, it's possible to count the difference, an increase of 0.5 FTE, towards the indicator CO24. In the case of a transfer of an existing employee under the project, the researcher can be counted towards the indicator CO24 only if his original position is filled. That means, in reality, the research capacity in the institution of the applicant increase. An FTE need not last for the entire duration of the project. It's necessary to know that only researchers may be counted towards the indicator. That means workers who create new or extend existing knowledge, usually by managing and or performing activities that involve strategy or creation of new knowledge, products, processes, methods, and systems, and apply scientific concepts and theories. They are mostly employees who, under the classification of occupations, are classified in main class 2 specialists. Researchers also include PhD students as long as they are employees of the organization and engaged in R&D activities. The job description of a researcher usually involves carrying out R&D activities, including management or supervision of these activities. That means the management of research of PhD students. Dissemination and utilization of scientific knowledge gained in the study of individual disciplines, collecting, processing, analyzing, and interpreting scientific papers and reports. Information on counting the target value towards CO24. Indicator CO24 means the worker is counted once only the year of joining the project. So results or target value is the sum of values for individual years. In subsequent year, the worker will be counted towards the indicator CO25. An example how the applicant should get the setting of target value of the indicator CO24. That means the value is recorded in the year of joining. The value for all new researchers is then added up. The sum constitutes the target value. Unit of measure of this indicator is FTE, so even if the new position in the project will be 1 FTE and the researcher joined the project in July, the value which should be counted into indicator CO24 for that individual year is 0.5 FTE. A similar table along with the Excel version of the table showing how the indicator will be reported in implementation was additionally provided to applicants, published under News and Information on the call Excellent Research on the website of the Ministry of Education. Indicator number of researchers working in improved research infrastructures. ID of this indicator is CO25 or 20500. Unit of measure is also FTE. This indicator means number of researchers working in modernized research infrastructures within the project. According to national indicators definitions, the value of the indicator is measured as the number of all jobs filled with researchers which are directly related to the performance of R&D activities or which are directly affected by project implementations. That means it's the sum of FTEs of researchers in support centers, both centers of excellence and regional R&D centers, expressed in FTEs. A job must be filled. Vacant jobs are not counted. Research support employees not directly involved in R&D activities are excluded. If the number of jobs increases, these positions are also counted separately towards the indicator CO24. The facilities may be private as well as public. The project must result in an improvement of the supported facility or the quality of its equipment. This means that only maintenance or replacement without improvement quality is not included. In this indicator can be count only positions according to the definition of researchers. Information on counting the target value towards CO25. Target value is the sum of FTEs for each year. It's the cumulative indicator. Within the indicator CO25, since the announcement of the call, there has been a change in the method of calculation of the target value. After consultations with the Ministry of Regional Development, the original method was reassessed, resulting in the current cumulative form. That means it determines the total number of researcher FTEs paid from OPRDE. Applicants were informed about the change through news and the publication of additional information on the Call Excellent Research on the website of the Ministry of Education, together with the publication of a detailed table for reporting indicators CO24 and CO25 at the time of implementation. At the same time, the applicants were informed that if the evaluator finds an inconsistency in the calculation of the target value, the evaluator must notify this fact and request a correction. However, the applicant will not lose any points in the evaluation. An example of the calculation is shown in the table. For example, after recording the individual values for each year, they are added up. This will indicate or set the target value of the indicator. Indicator number of newly built, expanded or modernized research infrastructures and centers of excellence. ID of this indicator is 24000. Measure unit is infrastructure. The applicant is required to specify this indicator in the annex to the application for support or implementation report, overview of key outputs to meet the ERDF project indicators. By default, the value of this indicator shown in the application for support is 1. That means a total of 1 piece of infrastructure will be built or modernized. For example, equipment and construction work as 1 unit. This value, the indicator, will be detailed in the annex list of key outputs to meet the ERDF project indicators. As part of the Call Excellent Research, this annex is intended only for indicator 24000. In this annex, the applicant shall state all infrastructure, equipment, devices, construction work, renovation of over 1 million Czech crowns, excluding VAT. Indicator extended, renovated or newly built capacities without occupation of agriculture land fund. ID of this indicator is 46601. Measure unit is square meter of usable area. This is a mandatory environmental indicator. This indicator is defined as the square meter of usable area approved or permitted for use, which was used for the renovation or construction of new premises without occupation or building up new land. In the case of new premises, this involves the demolition of the original building or the construction of new capacities on a brownfield. If the applicant performs no construction work and the project only involves equipping of the premises with new equipment and devices, the value of this indicator can be 0. The applicant should include the fact that the indicator is relevant for the applicant in a comment to the given indicator. Indicator number of participations of supported research teams carried out in the international cooperation programs. ID is 20312. Measure unit is participations. Given that the call does not limit the focus of research project that could be submitted, the indicator is not restricted by any specific listing of international cooperation programs which could be recognized as part of the indicator. Branches and research focuses of project can be very specific. The restriction on the indicator only to certain programs could lead to discrimination. Evaluation of this indicator will therefore have to be done by an expert skilled in that field in relation to the research focus and programs of the project. Applicants were advised to include in the comments to the given indicator a list of specific international cooperation programs from which the target value is composed. It should therefore be possible to evaluate individual programs and if they belong to the substantive setting of the indicator. Number of participations of supported research teams carried out in international cooperation programs. Evaluation of the setting of the indicator's target value, including programs from which the value was compiled, should be based on the following principles. The applicants were made familiar with these principles within consultations, questions, and also FAQ. All these main principles have to be met cumulatively. Links to the substantive focus of the project. Generally, it's only possible to count towards the indicator only those programs that were created after the start of the project and that show substantive connection to the research focus of the project. It must be an international public tender. This means that international cooperation with direct allocation of resources are excluded from the indicator. It's required that there is a competition among projects from different countries. The funds of the grant program must come from international sources. They may be both public and private sources. Allowed are programs with a certain degree of co-financing as well as those where resource allocation takes place through institutions in the Czech Republic. For example, Norway funds. The financial resources are international, but their allocation is through the Ministry of Finance. And also quality. The specification of the indicator contains certain programs that should generally set a qualitative level of tenders included in this indicator. The aim of the project or call is to support excellent research which will be competitive in an international environment. This aim should be also matched by the selected tenders. And for the sake of completeness, participation of minimal 2 members of the expert team is necessary. This criterion will be primarily checked during implementation. Examples. According to the above case, the indicator therefore excludes programs such as bilateral cooperation programs, where each party pays its own part of the cost, as well as grant programs paid from the chapters of the state budget of the Czech Republic. For example, grants announced by the Grant Agency or Technological Agency of the Czech Republic, etc. Indicator share of expert publications in co-authorship with researchers from abroad. ID is 20214. Unit of measure is %. Target value equals share of indicator 20211 and 20216. This indicator includes the share of scientific publications registered in Thomson Reuters Web of Science or Scopus in co-authorship of researchers from domestic and foreign institutions, out of the total number of publications issued by a supported research institution after the approval of the project in OPRDE. The indicator is calculated as the share of secondary results indicators, expert publications, and number of scientific publications in co-authorship of domestic and foreign researchers. Concerning this indicator, technical difficulties occurred in the system during the opening of the call, when the indicator could not be completed in the case of applicants who filled the application after 18th of May 2016. The indicator did not display in the menu. If the indicator is not included in the application, it's necessary to notify this fact in the report, so that the indicator can be subsequently added either by the managing authority or the applicants. This fact does not affect the scoring. Indicator publications created by supported entities. ID is 20211. Measure unit is publications. Basic evaluation principles. The number of publications registered in Web of Science or Scopus published after the date of approval of the project. At least one of the authors must be a researcher of the supported institution. Publications must be substantively consistent with the focus of the project. According to the National Indicator List, the selected types of documents are as follows: article, book, book chapter, letter, and review. Indicator publications in co-authorship with researchers from abroad created by supported entities. ID is 20216. Measure unit is publications. This indicator means the number of expert publications recorded in Web of Science or Scopus published after the date of approval of the project in OPRDE, co-authored by researchers from national and foreign institutions. At least one of the co-authors of the publication is a researcher from the supported research institution, and at least one of the co-authors is a researcher from a foreign institution. The publication should again be in line with the substantive focus of the call. And the last indicator of the call is International Patent Applications, PCT, created by supported entities. ID is 22011. Measure unit is applications. This is the only optional indicator. If selected by the applicant, it must be completed. It's only possible to count patents in international stage of proceedings, depending on the year of filing.